Hi, my name is Katie Sweetman, and this is a webinar on the eclipses of November and December 2021. So we are going to be looking at why this is an important time. Every 6 months, we have eclipses and what key areas of your life this will be highlighting. And we'll go in this further in a moment, but eclipses, they're huge turning points in the year, and we'll have a couple of eclipse seasons in a year. Sometimes we'll have 3 eclipse seasons. So as I record this, it's November 11th, 2021. We're doing this right before the start of a lunar eclipse. This will be November 19th, so we have some time. And again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I am an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area. I was living in Brooklyn for 16 years. I'm actually originally from the Washington, D.C. area, in case that's not something you know. But I created Empowering Astrology way back in 2010 because I wanted to give voice to the way that I saw astrology and how astrology can be a really powerful tool for growth and transformation. So here's our agenda for today. And if you're watching on the replay, you can take a pause or whatever, but this is sort of the rundown of what we're going to be looking at today. Of course, we're going to have an overview and talk about why the sun and the moon are so important in astrology and what are eclipses. That's, gotta make sure we know that, and the lunar nodes, the role of the lunar nodes in the eclipse, and how eclipses are really about these big arcs of time. And of course, we'll look at the eclipses of this current eclipse season and what it means for you when we go through the 12 signs. When we go through the 12 signs, maybe this is a little bit of an intermediate point. A lot of you already know this already, but listen for your rising sign. That's going to give you another dimension of information. Introduction. Eclipses open a doorway. So we get into eclipse season and we get into this liminal space where things start to come in and come out. This is a powerful vortex. So you pay attention to what's starting to come in and out of your life at this time. Every 6 months, we have eclipse season. So this is something that you can pretty much guarantee, like clockwork, but eclipses, they have a story arc that goes out over an 18 to 24 month period. And you're going to see how with this eclipse season, we are closing out or beginning to close out one story arc that we began in June of 2020, and then opening up another one. So there's a sense that when we get to eclipse season, and this is a metaphor that I use a lot in my work, it's like we're watching a theatrical performance, and the curtain comes down and there's this anticipation of the next act. What are we going to see? And then eclipse season, it's like when we have the eclipses, the curtain comes up. And what we see on that stage may be very different than the previous act. People that were there are not there. They've exited the stage. Other people have come in. There's a sense that maybe there's a traumatic scene, or maybe there's just something completely new. There's a sense of things rearranging, moving around. And I think that's just something to kind of play with in your own mind about this time, because I think there's a lot of sometimes fear about what is going to happen during eclipse seasons, because they have a little bit of a reputation. But if we look at it as we're sort of coming up to the next act, it takes away a little bit of the edge. Eclipses, they are vortices of energy. You have the sun and the moon appear to disappear. This is why the ancients put such power on them. But that said, things are coming in and out of your life. Even though we were using the metaphor of this kind of great stage of your life, what do you want in this time? What do you want to come in? What do you want to come out? Although, to be completely fair, the eclipses are very powerful, so you want to be very careful about the things that you make permanent or you agree to during eclipse season. Little personal side note, I moved here to New Jersey. I just moved right outside the city, across the river from Manhattan. I moved during eclipse season. Did I plan it that way? No, but it was sort of this realization of what I was doing and how it was all just sort of unfolding with me. And I knew that by moving during eclipse season, that was me leaving New York City and quite possibly leaving it for good, even though I can just look out my window and see Manhattan. So as I was saying earlier, the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon are the twin forces of life. They are the archetypical yin, moon, yang, sun, and suddenly they're not there. So we have to really look at this from a little bit more of a deeper dimension, excuse me, than just the astrological dimension or astronomical dimension. This is very classic with eclipses, and just a little, exercise in your own time. Pay attention to who and what's going on in the news during eclipse season. It is very common for somebody to have a fall from grace or sort of a swift removal of power during eclipse season. And sometimes it's the other way around. Somebody is elevated. You could win the World Cup. You're like the star performer of the World Cup, or you get elected, or you get a promotion, or maybe it's a scandal. Your star goes down. Astrology is about telling time, and eclipses are one of those primary drivers in the time of our life. And eclipses are going to put a spotlight on a particular area of your life. And so that part, that story, that archetypal area of your life is very highlighted. It could be relationships, it could be career, but this is something that eclipses, they return to, and they weave these stories out throughout the duration of our life. And I think when we know that there is an eclipse coming to a certain part of our life, and especially when the eclipses start to shift from one pair of signs to another, we can anticipate that. We know that there's a certain part of our life where there's going to be some type of shift. And like I said, the curtain comes up. It could be somebody has left the stage, somebody has entered the stage. It could be that there's a completely different configuration on the stage. We know that something's going to happen. So part 2, the sun and the moon, divine alchemy. The sun and the moon are the yin and the yang of creation. So this energy, the fire of the sun, it's very yang, meaning it's very active, directional. But then the moon is the yin, it's receptive. It's that kind of calming, quiet energy. It's not a comment on gender. It's just energy. It's the plus and the minus on the battery of creation. So you have these two forces, the forces of life, and something shifts during an eclipse. And so we have the symbolic mother, archetypical mother, moon, and archetypical father, and sun, and they give life to everything. Just like we have the sun during the day, it gives life to us, helps us make vitamin D, gives life to the planet and the plants and the animals. Then we have the moon and what that also does for our natural world. And it's my way of seeing things is that the lunar eclipse and lunar cycle, rather, it weaves our energetic reality. And you have a new moon and it opens a container of energy, opens the stage. And then 2 weeks later, you have a full moon, but that new moon with the energies that were seated at the time of the new moon, that tells us a lot of the type of energies that we are working with and creating with over a 28, 29-day period, which is the length of a lunar month. And that gives us a sense of what is happening in our lives. And that's kind of creating the reality around us. Often I say in my work that the astrology is 50%, you're the other 50%. And I absolutely believe that, but there are some things that are just outside of our control. And there's an element of fate. I know fate's a big word, but fate being really tied up with the eclipses. Fate, destiny, change, transformation. So we can't control the fact that there's going to be an eclipse. We can't make it not happen. So we have to, in a way, just align with what is being asked of us. If we know that there's going to be a change in a certain part of our life, well, how do we align with the most positive outcome, but then, excuse me, learn to be flexible with the other things that are happening. Part 3, what are eclipses?